I just finished Newt Gingrich's new book, Rediscovering God in America. It's every bit as good as you would expect it to be. The former House Speaker, wonderful material regularly from GingrichProductions.com. Just got back from Europe, so what about that timing? We welcome on our guest line Speaker Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, how have you been?
We've been doing great, and Callista and I really enjoyed making Rediscovering God in America. She did most of the pictures, and we put it together as a book.
It's a beautiful book. I mean, it's got such a powerful message and such a timely message. So please congratulate Callista for me as well. And Newt, what a week. And this is like almost like a Hollywood movie if you were going to script the message of a presidential candidate who is the subject of all the slings and arrows that can be thrown at him. And this guy campaigns on sovereignty, on immigration, and jobs. And the British people come along and they say, you know what? If it's time to vote on sovereignty, immigration, and jobs, here's how we're going to vote. You couldn't make this up if you were writing a novel about this, Newt.
Oh, I know. And the pictures of him today from Turnberry in Scotland, the reminder, by the way, that his mother was a first-generation immigrant. She was from Scotland.
Right. Right.
I thought his tone was about perfect today. It was calm. It was friendly. He answered questions extensively, including some fairly hostile questions from the left-wing British press.
Right.
And I thought that it was, and it also just totally eclipses Hillary. I mean, it's sort of like you get all Trump all the time, and you don't even see Hillary right now. She, of course, joined Obama in urging the British people to vote no. They lost, and I think Trump may be right. Obama's preachy speech in England may have been part of why they lost. I mean, people don't particularly like for other folks coming in and dictating to them, which Obama tried to do. And Trump said all along that while he would vote to leave, there was really up to the people of Britain, and they had to decide for themselves what they believed in and what they wanted to do. But I do think it is one more signal. By the way, the week before, for the first time in the 2,800-year history of Rome, a woman was elected mayor. But what made it particularly important, in addition to breaking the glass ceiling for being mayor of Rome, was the fact that she ran as a populist against the establishment parties, got 65% of the vote, and at the same time, another woman was winning the mayor's office in Turin on exactly the same platform, and they were signals that this new party in Italy, which had actually been founded by a comedian, I mean, sort of the equivalent of Jon Stewart creating a party here. This party is beginning to gain some real traction, and it's part of the same anti-establishment, anti-bureaucracy, anti-Brussels kind of mood that is sweeping Europe.
Do you think this, and there's been a couple of things closer to home, of course, the Supreme Court's real smackdown of Obama's efforts to protect illegals from deportation and all this DREAM Act stuff and everything. The U.S. Supreme Court just basically eviscerated his entire vision for the rest of his presidency this week, again vindicating Trump. Will these kinds of earth-shattering moments be enough to win over the petulant Republicans who are continually pouting and throwing their temper tantrum about Donald Trump and refusing to support him?
Look, I don't think the petulant Republicans matter except in the news media. Nobody in America wakes up in the morning and says, gosh, I wonder what Mitt Romney wants me to do. It's absurd. Romney's become the anti-Republican. And Trump's great strength isn't Republican, it's American.
Right.
He has an appeal which I think is going to reach African Americans and Latinos and Asian Americans and young people in ways that no Republican in modern times has reached them. And I think that what you saw happening with Brexit, where, for example, the British Labour Party leadership was very opposed to leaving.
Right.
But in working class town after working class town, the actual voters said, wait a second, our wages aren't going up. We're losing jobs. We're drowning in immigrants. Brussels is dictating our lives. And so they just split with their party leadership. And, of course, you had in the Conservative Party an absolute civil war in which the incumbent prime minister got defeated only a year after he won an extraordinary victory. So here's Cameron, who came off of a huge victory a year ago, and he's now resigning in total defeat.
Right. You just got back from Europe. Over there, I mean, I know that as we were covering this and reading about and hearing about this Brexit coverage, there was all kinds of accusations that those in favor of leaving the EU were xenophobes, racists. There really are a lot of parallels between what this entire vote was about and what we're going through here in the United States, right?
There really is, and if I can sound like the teacher I used to be, I want to recommend two very interesting books. One by Charlie Murray about 2 years ago called Coming Apart, What's Happening to White America, and the other by Kim Strassel on intimidation and the whole notion that the left's entire goal now is to intimidate because they can't win a popular vote. And the reason I tie the two together is Murray, in the opening quarter of his book, describes the rise of an elite by zip code, in which he says you have whole layers of people now. Think of Washington bureaucrats, Washington lobbyists, Washington reporters. They all go to elite schools. Their kids all go to private school. They all live in very nice neighborhoods. And in that setting, people look around and they realize, that everybody they know thinks like they do.
Right. Right.
And so these are the people who are being repudiated, because the truth is, in virtually every country, the elites are a very small percentage overall, and the contract hasn't worked. For a long time, the elites basically said, let us run the country because we're really smart, and we all went to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or someplace like that. And look at the Supreme Court, for example, where you don't get any state university law school graduates as members of the Supreme Court, so it's entirely elitist. Whether it's liberal or conservative, it's elitist. It doesn't represent the norms and values of normal Americans. So what's happened is, as the economy's gotten worse, as the threat of being killed has gotten greater, as the failure of our wars overseas has gotten more obvious, people are saying, no, I don't trust these guys to run my country.
Enough already.
By the way,
yeah.
I think there's a direct pattern, and I'm going to be writing about this next week, between the bureaucrats in Brussels and the bureaucrats in Washington, and the degree to which people wanted to take their country back.
I can't wait to watch for it next week. Newt Gingrich, let's talk a little bit about this huge national debate that erupted after Orlando about gun control. You have a guy that pledged allegiance to ISIS. I don't know how much of this you were following in Europe, but it was just stunning to watch Loretta Lynch announce that they would redact the word ISIS from the transcripts between the killer and the 911 dispatchers. Then, of course, they put it back in because there was such a ridiculous, there was such an outcry at that ridiculousness. Now you've got Democrats who are having a sit-in on the floor of Congress because they demand that something gets done about gun control. It's as if the terror aspect and ISIS and what this killer did was totally obliterated by a determined effort to enact more gun control legislation in America. Are people seeing through this, do you think?
Well, I think the average American is. My newsletter today, which was also an article in the Washington Times last night, releases a new poll by Matt Towery Jr., in which we found that overwhelmingly, 91, 92% of the American people favor restricting suspected terrorists from getting guns. And there's nothing like that feeling about, for example, AR-15s. People basically have said, look, I don't think the weapon is the problem. And this is why gun control never passes. But remember, if you, and I do want to give some credit here to Paul Ryan and to Mike McCall, because they both put pressure on the Attorney General almost within minutes of her amazing announcement. I mean, both of them just pounded on her, and I think that was a significant part of why they caved so quickly. But I have to tell you, liberals are people who get up in the morning and they say, I know the answer is bigger government. Now, what's your question? And they get up in the morning and they say, I know we need gun control. What is it you're talking about?
Right.
And they get up in the morning and they say, I know we need a lot more refugees to come in to drown the rest of us. Now, who are you?
They're always full of solutions in search of a problem.
That's exactly right. And they are very ideologically committed, and their ideology replaces facts.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's been a pretty good week. Trump's had a good week. Reports of fundraising as much as $14 million over a few days. Because the media was having a field day scoffing at his depleted coffers. So funny for a guy who's struggling with fundraising, supposedly, as this Brian Stelter over at CNN, the CNN media guy, pointed out just now on Twitter. Most Americans woke up today with news about Brexit, and all they're seeing and hearing is Donald Trump in Scotland. He's the American leader they're hearing from and seeing. And so really Trump has a huge disadvantage in terms of prominence in the media?
Well, look, first of all, and I've said this to a bunch of reporters, and I saw the first articles about Hillary's fundraising versus Trump's. I said, doesn't that remind you of Jeb Bush? I mean, I was almost scathing. I said, these are friends of mine. I just said, you guys learn nothing.
Right. Correct.
Trump may win or he may lose, but it ain't going to be over money. Second, I loved yesterday when he announced that he was writing off the $50 million in the campaign and not going to try to pay himself back. Maybe Hillary ought to be challenged to take some of her speech money from Goldman Sachs and others and match Trump and put it into her campaign. But in one swipe with a pen, Trump just eliminated a $50 million debt for his campaign personally. And which also reinforced when he said a few days ago, look, if we fall a little bit short, I'll write the check. Well, anybody who thought that was just boasting, I just saw him do it. I also have to say, he sold Callisto and Turnberry. She now has a new destination. We watched him give his press conference.
Is that not gorgeous? Man, I saw that on TV.
And typically Trump style. It was 50% press conference, 50% sales pitch.
Right. And he even managed to land in a helicopter with Trump emblazoned on the side of the helicopter over there.
He is all P.T. Barnum all the time.
He's a showman, and he knows how to deliver the message. Hey, I'm in a good enough mood. Will you please make me sort of ecstatic on a Friday and tell me that Newt Gingrich is going to play a role in a Donald Trump administration? Please, will you send me into the weekend happy?
Look, as a citizen, obviously I'm going to do everything I can both to help elect him, because I think it's desperately important that we defeat Hillary, and I actually think Trump would be a remarkable historic president. And obviously, I'll try to help the next president any way I can. I mean, as a citizen, I owe it to my country and to my children and grandchildren to try to make America great again. So that, yes, I'll help. GingrichProductions.com. Get his newsletter, get his new book with Callista. It's beautiful. Rediscovering God in America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Take care. Take care.